How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all having a fantastic day. This video, we're going to go over an article by Dvir Abramovic, who is an anti-white. He is a chairperson of the Anti-Defamation Commission in Australia, I believe, or at least he was in 2017. I'm not sure if he is anymore. But the Anti-Defamation Commission is essentially Australia's version of the Anti-Defamation League, so make of that what you will. But let's go over the article right now, because this really is one of the worst pieces of rubbish you will ever read.
Just a quick message. Whether it's an algorithm hiding content or outright deletion, internet censorship is on the rise. Please consider following me on free speech websites Gab, Minds, and BitChute. I'm constantly posting content, and they are a great way to stay notified of uploads. Can't wait to see you there.
Over the past few years, we have witnessed an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitism in our nation that is frightening in its intensity. From homegrown
white supreme pizzas
and far-right radicals, the Nazi swastika is the preferred weapon of choice to sow fear, harass, and intimidate. Well, where do you begin there? So, it's just absolute rubbish what he's talking about here. So, a lot of the time, people are drawing swastikas on buildings. That's what he's talking about. He's saying that some people are going and drawing swastikas around the place, or some people might be wearing a swastika, and he doesn't like it because he doesn't like the symbol, and he thinks everyone else should hate it as well because he doesn't like it. And he's claiming that it's used to sow fear, harass, and intimidate, which in most instances is not the truth. In most instances, if it's legitimate, it's usually just some kid, some shitposter who wants to piss people off. Maybe it's someone who has a problem with the actions of Israel, potentially. A lot of the time it's shitposting, but as far as I can tell, the most common occurrence for this happening is actually these people who are apparently the victims of the paint, someone drawing a symbol on their property, are actually doing it themselves. A lot of the time it's just a false flag designed to create sympathy for a certain group of people. So this is the point of them doing that. It's to make people feel sorry for them to be able to play the victim, and then for people like Dvir Abramovic to come out with articles like this, which pretty much attack all our freedoms. They basically attack our freedoms, which you're going to see later in the video.
I also want to point out that the swastika itself has actually been used by people of European ancestry for 10 to 12,000 years, found all around the world as well. What it actually depicts is the Big Dipper rotating around the North Star through the seasons. So if he knows that, then his opinion is just flat out anti-white bigotry, and if he doesn't, then it's pure ignorance.
So he said, indeed, the epidemic, apparently it's an epidemic. Just colourful language there used to describe people painting a shape on walls, which is illegal, mind you. Don't do it. It is vandalism. Has defiled the streets of Melbourne, reaching unprecedented levels. And he's listed here Elisa's Place Cafe, an elderly care facility in Caulfield, which apparently houses Holocaust survivors. Righto. Don't think so, but banners belonging to Josh Frydenberg. Yeah, okay. And then this one here. But then he comes down to this one. I wanted to point it out because Heil Youth and Heil was right were scrawled on two walls in Ashburton near TAFE, while in Brighton a large sign depicting a swastika inside a Star of David was placed on a private property. So again, the first one here easily could be a troll, easily could just be a false flag. Again, I don't believe it unless we actually have the person who's done it. We're not going to be able to know the motive. Same one here for the swastika inside the Star of David. Although, again, like I mentioned before, that could just be a protest against the actions of Israel. And I sort of pointed this out because I'll not mention it later in the video, but it's not actually the Star of David that they call The Star of David, like, I mean, there's no such thing as a Star of David. It was a concept made up, I think, about 100 years ago. I'm not exactly sure how long ago they started calling it the Star of David, but the individual they're talking about, King David from the Bible, who conquered Canaan, he didn't have that star. He never used the star that they used. What they're actually using is the Star of Moloch, and Moloch is an ancient god associated with child sacrifice. It was also the red crest of the Rothschild family in the 18th century before they changed it to an actual family crest. They put it outside their bank where they did business to identify their family. It's actually a satanic symbol, but no one really knows that. That's a truth. That is 100% truthful. That's a fact. It's not a comment on it. It's just a satanic symbol. Whatever country you came from and whatever language you speak, seeing the visible representation of the National Socialist German Workers' Party induces feelings of revulsion and horror. And if you are the child or the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor, it tears a hole in your heart. The monstrosities with which the is linked must never be forgotten. Let's assume that 6 million people were tragically killed. I mean, if 6 million people were killed, then that's definitely a tragedy. That is still a fraction of the people who were killed by communists who were of a certain tribe in Russia. They killed 30 million, maybe more, Ukrainians and white Christian Russians, even before World War II started. I believe before the National Socialist German Workers' Party rose to power as well. So they had a big head start, and they killed way more people well before World War II and this supposed tragedy happened. Then we have to look at the communists and what they did in China and what they did in Cambodia. Are we now going to ban the hammer and sickle, which is what he wants to do? Are we going to say, no, we can't show the hammer and sickle because it most definitely induces feelings of revulsion and horror for people who have actually survived that? And there are communist survivors, genuine communist survivors living in Australia now who would see the hammer and sickle and just be utterly appalled that people are wearing it. And what about the Islamic flag? Like, Islam is responsible for 200 million murders over 1,000 years. Should we also ban that? Should we also say, well, that makes me feel revolted and horrified when I see that? I mean, I don't want Islam anywhere near my family or anywhere near my country because I don't like the ideology. I disagree with the ideology. I think it's a violent ideology. But does that mean we should ban it? No, I don't think we should ban it, but we should let people know what it actually means and what it actually represents. But he continues with just the usual lie. Indeed, for a country known for its multicultural fabric, this contagion of hate is pushing our tolerance to a breaking point. It means that a long-deferred reckoning on how to deal with this stain must now take place. What about the lie that Australia is a multicultural country? We're not a multicultural country. Australian people never voted to open our borders. That was imposed upon us by the ruling parasite class against our will. And now whenever we try, or whenever anyone tries to get a vote on it in Parliament, these same ruling parasites say, no, you can't do it. No, we're a multicultural country. It'll be hatred. We can't give Australians a say on who actually comes here. So, no, there is no multicultural fabric. Multiculturalism is tribalism. It is the ethnic replacement of one ethnic culture with multiple ethnic cultures. So this is a flat-out lie. And this is why they use multiculturalism as a weapon, or what they call multiculturalism, which is just ethnic replacement. It's so that they can say things like this. So, oh, well, we are of this ethnicity and this symbol we don't like, therefore everyone should stop it because we're multicultural. That's just absolutely flat-out ridiculous. Just ridiculous. A lie on every level, and this kind of lie is parasitism and it should be made illegal. We owe it to the victims, the survivors, and the diggers who valiantly fought the National Socialists and sacrificed their lives to vanquish his demonic regime, to once and for all close the lid on this issue. I mean, this is just horrendous. What he's saying here is essentially claiming that the diggers fought for what we have now against Hitler because of his apparent atrocities. But they weren't actually fighting for that. They were fighting for their family. They were fighting for the Australian ethno-state. They were not fighting for gay marriage. They weren't fighting for a multicultural Australia. These diggers would be absolutely appalled at this article because they fought for our liberty. And they actually fought to free Poland, which never happened. We ended up leaving Poland to the communists, the Red Army, which is horrendous. But they had no idea of the apparent Holoho atrocities. They'd never even heard of it. We didn't find out about it until the communists, who also happened to be, went through Germany and they suddenly found what they called death camps. There were no actual death camps found on the Allied side. Make of that what you will. Can anyone look the survivors in the eye and convince them that this is simply about freedom of speech, when we know that these racists who seek to destroy the touchstones of our democracy, such as dignity and equality, are the enemy of our shared ideals? Again, just more lies and gaslighting. Our democracy was not built on dignity and equality. I mean, equality before the law, but not equality of cultures, not equality of people in general. I mean, the people who founded this country understood very well that people weren't created equal. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are good at sport, some people are good at maths. We're not equal. And the idea that this is our touchstone of our democracy is a lie. There's nothing about dignity and equality in the Constitution, but there is an implied freedom of speech in the Constitution. The founders of this country were very, very clear that freedom of speech was tantamount to a strong democratic nation, and this idiot is calling for it to be ended, as you're going to see shortly. The idea that he actually respects our democracy, the democracy that my ancestors built, not his. My ancestors built it. The idea that he respects that is just an absolute joke. No, he's completely lying here, and it's ridiculous. Again, this kind of lie should be illegal. I should be allowed to sue him for making that lie because it is parasitism. It's imposing a cost on the people of Australia. A number of countries have outlawed National Socialist symbols. Germany, Italy, Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and a raft of Eastern European countries. There should be no place for this symbol in Australia, proud as it is of its ethnic, religious, and racial diversity. Well, if Germany, Italy, Austria, Czech Republic, and Slovakia all rounded up the Juden and put them in concentration camps, should we all do the same thing? The idea that just because they did it somehow means that we should violate the fundamental right to freely express ourselves in this country is not just absurd, it is, again, an insult to the sacrifice of my ancestors and the diggers. It's disgusting that this person is allowed such a large platform in this country. And who says we're proud of our ethnic, religious, and racial diversity? No, the parasite class are proud of that because the parasite class imposed it on us. Politicians, academics, the media, they imposed it on us. They tell us we're supposed to be proud of our ethnic, religious, and racial diversity, but we were never actually given a choice in the matter. Again, whenever someone tries to give us a choice, they get shut down in Parliament. So I'm not proud of our diversity, because diversity is just white genocide. Why would I be proud of that? That's ridiculous. He's proud because he's pushing it on us, and he's an anti-white, and he doesn't want us to exist anymore, most likely. It's time for a denazification campaign to urge the state and federal governments to ban the public showcasing of National Socialist symbols. Well, there it is. This guy wants to spit and take a dump on our most fundamental liberty, the right to express ourselves. I don't care how offensive you find the swastika. The National Socialist flag isn't even just a swastika. That's not what the National Socialist flag is. The National Socialist flag is a swastika with a white circle and a red background. That is the National Socialist flag, not the swastika. The swastika outdates the National Socialists by 10,000 years. But like I said before, should we now ban all symbols just because they're associated with mass murder? Should we ban the hammer and sickle? Should we ban the Star of Moloch? Should we ban the Islamic flag? Should we do that now just because I find them offensive? Just because I feel revolted when I see them now because they're associated with actual proven mass murder? No, of course not, because we still have the right to freely express ourselves, and you should have the right to freely express yourself, no matter how offensive it might be. And there is one thing that he completely ignores in all this, and in all this National Socialist epidemic, and I sort of touched on it before, and that is that vandalism is illegal! These people are already breaking the law when they spray paint shapes on private property. Banning them from doing that isn't going to stop them from doing that. It'll just make it a more rebellious thing to do. It'll probably make it a lot worse and have the opposite effect that this idiot ultimately wants. That said, hope you enjoyed the video. Share the truth around, and I'll see ya when I see ya.